So I believe it was a collaboration between my mother and father.
Okay.
Because my name is Joe Willis Lucky the Third.
Okay.
So by me just innately having the third on there, it came from my father's name. But my mother always told me that she thought that it would, I guess, bring prominence to me. The basis of the whole name was, my grandfather's name was actually, he was born Joe Willie Blakely.
Okay.
But he never knew his father growing up. He was actually raised in Texas on a farm with his aunt and uncle. And to be able to leave that life and get something new, completely different, he went into the Army at age 17.
Wow.
Which is actually a year younger than what you're able to do it. So when he enlisted, in order for him not to really check his records or anything, he changed his name over to his father's name. So he dropped, so he was actually named Joseph Willie Blakely. So he dropped the Joseph and went Joe Willis Lucky. And then he would have later on Senior. So
so they just brought up, he just brought up Lucky altogether.
Well, his father's name was Lucky.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
What about you?
My mom did it. My mom was named me Paul out of the Bible. I don't know where the Wayne came from. I'd like to call her and ask her. I'm sure she told me before.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And when I was younger, like in elementary school, it was Paul Wayne Jenkins, because another man married my mother, and I took on his last name. And when I got to high school, I decided to go back to my given name, which was Turner, Paul Wayne Turner. But Paul is right from the guy, the Apostle Paul in the Bible. But I'm not sure where the Wayne came from.
That's awesome, man.
And,
You said Bruce Wayne?
Yeah, we could have been Bruce Wayne like Batman. I really do like Batman when I was a kid, but no, I don't think that was it. Batman wasn't out then. I'm older than Batman. At least the TV Batman, not the comic book Batman.
Okay, I was about to say, whoa.
So my mother named me. I was a month delayed, and they went into she went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, hey, if he doesn't come out in a week, we have to induce labor. She walked out the office and went into labor. And so my birthday is December 20th because my birthday originally was supposed to be like November 20th. And because I was so close to Christmas, I was a Christmas baby. And so my name is Nicholas after St. Nick.
Oh, wow. So for me, it's actually a coin flip. Because either I was going to be named David or Malachi. My mom wanted me to be named Malachi. I think I had a great-great-grandfather who had a middle name, Malachi, as well as, my family's just like really, kind of religious. Like my great-grandfather was a preacher. But my father wanted to name me David because he didn't really have a father in his life, but he had a best friend named Bo. And his father kind of really took that father figure role in his life. And his name was David.
So, named after John F. Kennedy. So, and you told me that real young, put me on him. So, mine's just simple. I know that one.
Yeah. There's a little history behind that. John F. Kennedy put together a program for African American families. If the husband had a government type of job, they would find a job for the wife. And in that case, it was my mom and your grandmother. Okay. And that's how she ended up working at the post office, which 20 years later she retired from. Right. Grandpa was working at Rockwell at the time, so that made her eligible. Kennedy's program allowing grandma to get a job allowed us to move to Compton, which at the time was an upper middle class area. Yeah. I think we were the second black on the block when we moved there. So that's the history.
Man, wow.
Kennedy's
now,
a big deal.
Definitely makes sense. Put the two and two together for sure.
I want to see what you know.
I would say for my name Christian, obviously the religion. Our family's big on religion. Looking at your father, he's always in the Bible. And obviously it goes down generation to generation.
So with your dad's name, Baldwin, it's kind of funny. I got teased about this name all my life and didn't like it at first, but love it now. I know when they say Baldwin, they're talking about me. But the way Grandma explained it to me is when she was pregnant with me, there's a poet, his name is James Baldwin, and she was listening to his voice and she always said, wow, this man, he sounds so incredible. She said she walked into the living room, as you know, Grandma always got jokes, and she saw him and said, oh, he's not very handsome. James Baldwin is not a handsome guy, but he's very intelligent. And she liked him so much, the way he sounded and his mindset. She said, I'm gonna name, if he's a boy, I'm gonna name him, she was thinking James. But she said, it's too many kids in the neighborhood named James. And she said, what about Baldwin? And so
it's different.
Yeah, and I like it now.
So, it was actually my pops. So my mom and pops had an arrangement where my dad was like, hey, if it's a girl, you name it. If it's a boy, I'll name it. So hence my pops naming me. And Rashad basically means one with good judgment. Yeah, so, and it has an Arabic background, but that's just because I looked that up. I'm sure my parents ain't had no clue. Yeah, so that's...
Well, for me, both my parents named me, but it was more at the last minute, you know, because they were in the hospital, my mom was giving birth, and they had a list of names that they still haven't decided on. Okay. So they decided to ask the nurses and get other people's opinions.
So a random nurse probably just...
It was like a vote, like a consensus, and most people started saying that Nicholas basically is the name that everyone likes. So
what was the runner-up?
Huh?
What was the runner-up?
Honestly, that's a good question. I don't even know. Okay. But I know that Nicholas for sure. I think the other one was some ugly name that they wanted to give me, and I was like, thank God you didn't give me that name. But I know the history of it, or at least I read that Nicholas is, I think, is Greek for victory.
That's so. My mother named me. My name is Russell Lee Bennett. I was named. My grandfather's middle name was Lee. Also, they called him Lee Boy. So I looked like my grandfather more than anybody. So my mom wanted, you know, to keep her dad around, so she named me Russell Lee Bennett. So that's why.
Lee Boy, country boy.
Yeah, Texas stuff, you know, Southern. So.
My mom named me, and it's funny because my cousin was born a month before me. My name was supposed to be Daryl. My cousin was born a month before me, and his mother heard my mom named me Daryl, so she named him Daryl, and she didn't want to name me Daryl, so she named me Devin.
That's your name.
It's unique. Yeah, I stole a name, but it's unique. You know, it's a very unique name.
My mom and dad and my brother raised me, but I want to say that the whole village raised me. You know, because they always say it takes a village to raise a child. You know what I mean? For sure. So my parents were the disciplinaries, making sure that, you know, I was good doing what I had to do, especially in our environment, being in South Central and everything. So they wanted to make sure they're on top of me. And my brother raised me too as well, because he's 11 years older than me. So he tried to make sure I didn't get into nothing crazy, because he understood it better than my parents at a younger age. And honestly, my neighborhood, you know, we had neighbors and people who we saw as like a collective family unit. So everyone was almost like contributed to my upbringing, you know what I mean? So
that's what's up. And then so what about like a lesson you learned as a child?
The lesson I learned as a child, honestly, is to really overcome whatever your environment is that you see yourself being in, because you know, being in South Central is kind of like, you know, you're only exposed to certain things, and most of those things is not really of things to bring you up, you know what I mean? It's not things to really show that, you know, you're special, you know what I mean? It had to take the people around you to show that, you know, you're not really gonna get that in that environment. So I think that was the biggest lesson I learned, is to know that, you know, it doesn't matter where I'm from, I could still create my own life path, you know, doing it the right way, you know. So I think that would have to be that. So what will be that for you?
All right, well, I'd say who raised me would be my mom and dad.
Okay.
And then just an extension of that, kind of like the whole village to raise a child thing you touched on. That village for me would be the church. Like, yeah, man, because it was, you know, times where I got a whipping from Pastor.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so you already know what's up with that.
Right.
I'd say a dope lesson I learned as a kid that I pretty much still rock with as an adult is just, be a leader and not a follower. And, as a kid, you can be easily swayed to, so, if someone even looks cool, you like, oh, I want to rock, I want to be on whatever wave that is.
Right.
And, so that's just one thing my pops kind of more specifically drilled into.
The old adage, it takes a village.
Yeah.
So obviously my mother is paramount in my formative years. It just was always there. But fortunately, my parents kind of hit a rough patch and they separated and eventually divorced. There was a time where my dad was really out of my life. So that's when I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. So I would spend a lot of time with her and my grandfather, who I didn't even know they were divorced until I was like 11. It was a really weird living situation that they had. So I would say it was the majority of those three, but I had a bunch of aunts, play aunts, babysitters, family friends. So I was really raised by my community, and the most impactful lesson learned as a child. It's something I'm still working on myself, is to be as honest as possible.
Yeah,
I would say the thing that would irritate my mom, obviously little kids, you do things that irritate your parents all the time, but like the thing that she just would absolutely not have, like it would be the worst thing, even if it was a small thing, was to lie. Like she would just not have that. And it's something that I have definitely kind of had ingrained into me. And as you grow up, and things aren't necessarily as black and white as they are when you're a child, that honesty can be really difficult when you really should be truly honest, but that there can be consequences to that, whether it be relationships with friends, family, jobs, things like that. But at the end of the day, that you're doing the right thing in your heart and your mind. I guess that's the one thing I kind of took away from being raised by my mother.
Yeah. Somewhat similar. Both of my parents, a lot of time in my grandparents' house growing up. My grandmother passed when I was 6, and then a lot of time my grandfather passed when I was 16. And then when they passed, I spent a lot of time at my godmother's house. So there was a lot of bouncing there, and I spent time there, and I would go between aunts, uncles, so on and so on. Parents eventually divorced after I finished college, but it was like a long time coming. It should have happened earlier, to be honest. So I mean, it was raised by a lot of people, raised by a lot of family, always big family gathering though, with a lot of people there, and a lot of kind of, hands in the stew, if you will. Most impactful lesson might have been, I don't know, it's like about 16 or 17, my mother, and I was considering either going to Michigan State or like staying in state, going like within like the Midwest region. And her biggest lesson was basically like, go somewhere else and see how the sun sets. Because basically, I mean, at the end of the day, you'll always have a home. You'll always be able to go back to like wherever you're from, hopefully. But in the same token, if you stay there and you never really leave, you, one, may miss out on opportunities, but two, you don't know the type of person you'll become. You don't know the type of lessons that you'll learn from that. And honestly, most of what I've done since then has been a result of that lesson, which is, go to school in Atlanta, bounce around, and eventually ended up here.
So I was raised by my family, but I would say mostly my grandmother. And the most impactful lesson as a child would probably have to be, if you start something, finish it. Don't ever leave anything undone. Always give 110% with whatever you do. Because the moment you falter or you stop something after you started, then the next thing you'll stop to start it. And she didn't want that to be a habit. At starting and stopping. So she always said, make sure you finish whatever you start.
It's funny because I was raised by my family, but my grandmother was like
Granny boys.
Yeah, but,
there you go.
Yeah, but my mom worked, and my grandmother, she had worked at night, so she basically was there during the day or whatever. But that's what raised me. And then the same thing. Work hard. If you work hard, it's gonna pay off. So just make sure anything you do, work hard at it. Make sure you do your best, and
be true to yourself, you know, which is a cool thing. That's crazy.
My mother raised me. My mom and my dad didn't have a good relationship, and so my mother raised me. Single mother. She did in fact get married a couple of times during that time, but it was still primarily her. The single most important lesson. There were just so many. I think respect. I think respect was the biggest one, because my mother was, there was no way on God's green earth I was going to give her anything but respect. And she told me that in several different ways to make sure that I never disrespected her. And even there were times that things might have been done or said that she thought was disrespect that I didn't think was disrespect, but of course, you know, tie goes to mom. So being respectful of your elders, being respectful of those who raised you, being respectful of those who are older than you, I think that was the biggest lesson that my mom gave me.
I would say ours is pretty much similar. I was raised in a single parent household as well. My mother and father split around, I believe I was about 4 years old. And then from there, I believe my father went to prison when I was 6, maybe even sooner than that. I just remember when I was a child, like he was gone.
Wow, okay.
And I would always get cards or some kind of letters from my grandmother, because she would go out and visit him.
Right.
Or he'd send letters to me.
Okay.
So I remember having yellow pieces of paper, notepad paper, written very legibly, like penmanship was on point, and he'd send me letters and poems all the time. I can't remember when he got out, but I remember around like 9 or 10 possibly.
Okay.
Never really had like a solid foundation of a relationship with him. I would go over there reluctantly, like from time to time as a kid after he got out, and those were interesting times because he didn't really have much.
Right.
After you get out of prison, they kind of lock you out from jobs and everything else. Not saying that that's not part of his fault for being motivated to go out and find something.
Right.
Yeah. Most impactful lesson that I learned as a child was more so, like you said, respect. Perseverance a lot.
Okay.
Respect in the ways that my mother was no nonsense. I am her first and only kid.
Yeah.
So she was learning a lot as well as I was.
Yeah.
So if you speak to her, probably back then, it would be totally different from a conversation she would have now.
Right.
From different experience and gaining wisdom and knowledge and all that stuff. So I would say we butted heads a lot until she always quotes saying that until somebody turned her on into reading Men Are for Mars, Women Are for Venus, where she could actually understand, I guess, the psyche behind a boy or a man figure in relations to a woman. She said that completely changed, and literally after she read that book, our relationship changed, and she became my best friend like overnight.
Okay.
I know mine.
You go first.
I mean, I would probably say we're pretty equal as far as, you know, you and my mama always got us a good time, you know, with each other. But so I'll say I'm equally raised by both you and mama. But definitely the biggest impact I know, you always used to have a saying that you got from grandma: "Closed mouth don't get fed."
Yeah.
That's definitely my biggest like slogan growing up, because you know you can always apply that to whatever. If you're not assertive, go about your business like that. Closed mouth doesn't get fed. So that's something I always took from you guys. You know, telling me.
My part, I would say, I got a little bit from both you and my mom. Even though you're more outspoken and stuff, you were still able to teach me how to use, even though I'm not loud, outspoken, you're able to teach me how to use that to my benefit. You know, speak when, or speak when need to be.
Just like grandpa.
Yeah. And just be a quiet leader in a way.
You definitely.
People watch. People, even though it doesn't seem like it, people watch more so. And if you do the right things, you know, people will just look at that and follow you.
I like that. I actually, as an adult, take a page from your book. Sometimes Pop talked too much, and he had to learn to be quiet and be a better listener. That's helped me as an older adult. Yeah. Well, for me, my mom and my dad raised me. They were very interesting. You know, y'all, grandma and grandpa from the South. So the difference with us is I got spankings. You know, they spanked, whereas we broke the cycle with you guys. We didn't do that. You got grounded and things taken, but I mean, that was the difference. But a lot of love, you know, growing up right there in Compton. All 7 of us were blessed to live in that community and move on, but we still come back, and we're proud of coming back. That's what made us the men and women, you know, because your aunties, that made us the men and women we are today. And so they both raised me and have left an impact with sayings like, closed mouth don't get fed, don't have a pot to piss in or when to throw it out. Grandma had a lot of them. And I use those too today, and I follow them. They make a lot of sense, the old school with that.